As we begin, what I would invite you to do is if you could please mute if you're not speaking. And the other thing I would like to invite you to do is to put something in the chat as we start. Uh, in an ideal world, there would be time to hear everybody's voice as we begin, but that is not feasible at this stage. We will have lots of opportunities to speak to one another throughout our time, but I wanted to make a space for each person to kind of symbolically arrive. And so in the chat, I would like you to share this. Some of you will have been able to do the meditations that we had where we were outside and we were paying attention to the natural environment that we were in and were invited to a space of connection and meditation and awareness. And so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to consider this quote and then I'll invite you to write something. I love this quote from Iris Murdoch. Love is the extremely difficult realization that something other than oneself is real. Love is the extremely difficult realization that something other than oneself is real. So in the chat, I'd like you to put something that you maybe saw as something other than yourself that you experienced as real this week. Something other than yourself that you experienced as real could be an animate thing, an inanimate thing, a walking thing, a growing thing. So I invite you to share those in the chat. Water gurgling in the soil after a heavy rain, rain-filled streams falling, a huge cedar tree, a lichen forest on the rock, clouds, a yellow flower by itself greets you in this beautiful green field. Smile, bow your head, honor the yellow flower and all the green earth. Bald eagle soaring overhead, mist rising in the forest, wind through the trees, wind and the sound of leaves, deer on the street, owl flying early in the morning, gloriously colored. I don't know if I can keep reading this. It's so beautiful. Gloriously colored Gatineau hills, a flu virus, a tree in a park nearby, perhaps the last visit of a hummingbird on her way south, the cycle of air through all living things, my neighbors around our campfire, a penny from 1952 that turned up in the soil of the garden that's taming me, my cats who want attention, Anna, guinea pigs have emotions, happy, sad, grief, joy. They must pray too. A squirrel with a bushy tail huddled from the rain, breathing with a fig tree. The anxious dog whom I had forgotten to feed with his supper during a busy evening. The corn coming from the earth. Water, air, and sun is real. A butterfly drying its wings on a leaf of a tree. Tinkling leaves. A large, beautiful raven bobbing on top of a tall cedar in front of my house, Azzy the rabbit, my crabapple tree, and messy apples. Wow. I just want to say, if that caught you, please pick a reaction button at the bottom and send it out into the universe. That was amazing. Thank you, everybody. That was so beautiful. I think we could just read that again and be quiet. And we would have learned everything the earth needs to teach us this morning. One thing I didn't share in my introduction is that I seem to be at a phase in my life where emotion flows easily. So that will be part of the Sarah package you experienced today, apparently. Anyway, so as we know today, and as I mentioned at the beginning, the element that we're focusing on today is air and breath. And so, what I wanted to do was to share with you a poem that has been meaningful over the last 2 years as a real way of knowing ourselves as breathing, breathing humans, and letting the gift of that be part of our experience. So, a group of us are going to read a poem called The Cure for It All by Julie Fehrenbacher. And if you'd like to know who's speaking so that you're not kind of looking for us, you can, on your view choices, pick speaker, and that way you'll just get one person as we read through the poem together. And there's a wonderful expression that I met through an interview with Naomi Shihab Nye, a poet, an American poet, and she talks about the expression yotori, which she discovered from Japanese students that she was working with. And yotori is the space before something starts. And the student who suggested it to her said it's the space that happens after a poem, the space where the words of the poem land, where you are in the space that the poem has created through its language and its invitations. And so what we're going to do is, after we've read the poem, we'll take a couple of moments and we will sit together in the space that the poem has brought us into, and we'll let the goodness of it be there for all of us. And we'll just do that in silence for a few moments. This introduces us to the practice of poetry, which has been a wonderful practice with Green Exodus, and the practice of silence and stillness, which is another significant practice for becoming an eco-mystic. So I'd invite the folk who are going to join me to gather themselves, and we'll begin. So I think it's called The Cure for It All by Julie Fehrenbacher.
Go gently today. Don't hurry or think about the next thing.
And the people who are reading need to remember to unmute themselves. All right, I'll read that one. Walk with the quiet trees. Can you believe how brave they are? How kind? Model your life after theirs.
Low kisses at yourself in the mirror, especially when you think you've messed up.
Forgive yourself for not meeting your unreasonable expectations. You are human, not God. Don't be so arrogant.
Praise fresh air, clean water, good dogs. Spin something from joy.
Open a window, even if it's cold outside. Sit close. Close your eyes. Breathe.
Allow the river of it all to pulse through eyelashes, fingertips, bare toes.
Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe until you feel your bigness, until the sun rises in your veins. Breathe until you stop needing anything to be different. I'll just take a moment of silence. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to visit the nature meditation that some of us were able to enjoy this week and experiment with. I'm just curious, and how many folk were able to spend some time with that this week? If you want to just wave or, right, wonderful. So what we're going to do is we're going to take as another kind of moment of meditation some paragraphs from that particular writing, and we're going to listen to them together as a group because I think they're very they really express what we're trying to make ourselves open to and permeable to, which is a different experience of ourselves within the biosphere. So what I would like you to do, what we're going to do is be led in this by Ellen and Dave. We're going to read some of that for us this morning.
As awareness of breath deepens, turn your attention to the inhale. As you breathe in, be mindful that you are taking in oxygen released from the leaves and plants and grasses. If you are by the ocean, bear in mind the air is pervaded with oxygen released from phytoplankton. Their exhale is literally what keeps us alive. We are connected with forest, grasslands, and plants in invisible ways through the medium of air. Notice what happens when you breathe and reflect in this way. You are literally breathing with trillions of trees each and every moment.
In the same way, sense your exhale as your body breathes out. You release carbon into the atmosphere. That carbon dioxide is absorbed by the planet Queendom. As you breathe, sense this reciprocal relationship. You are breathing with the forest and plants who depend on that carbon dioxide. Continue to attune to breath sensations as if it were the first time you've breathed. Take in this simple miracle with a curious attention. Be aware that each breath connects you to the vastness of life around you. Each breath is shared with all living, breathing animals, birds, insects, and marine species.
Thank you. So now what we'll do is we're going to do breakout rooms again, as we did last time, and we will do each time we gather. So as those of you who were here last time remember, and I will just go over the kind of how we create this sacred container. So in the breakout rooms, you're invited to speak for 3 minutes. And while you're speaking, the other two people that are in the room with you are being present. They're listening to you deeply. They're not thinking about what they're going to say next. They're not riffing as to how their story is similar or different. They're not trying to fix anything or think of fixing anything. They're going to receive your story. And then when your 3 minutes are up, you can bow if you would like, and then move on to the next person who will speak for 3 minutes. And they speak from their heart, what's alive, most alive in them. They don't need to reference what the previous speaker has said. They just speak from what is kind of whelming up within them. And then the final speaker. and then we'll come back to the large group. So the question that you're being invited to hold in this triad conversation today is kind of what is alive in you right now as a result of the sharing that has already happened this morning, the sharing through the beautiful writing and creatures and things and experiences that were named at the very beginning, the poem that we've shared about breathing, now the reminder of these words from Mark Coleman in the meditation that perhaps you enjoyed this week. So you're invited to speak from whatever is most alive in you, from those experiences this morning, or from your experience with the meditation this week while you were outside. So we'll take our time to do that, and then we'll come back to the large group and we'll hear what has surfaced and what has arisen. So I think Ellen has been graciously doing the complicated math of figuring out how to get 3 people in each group. It's always a little stressful, but thank you for doing that, Ellen. Yes?
You may find, some people may find themselves in a dyad. I think there's, that's just the way it divides up. So you may be only with one other person. Most of you will be with 3. Are you ready?
Yeah. So, and if
Ready?
you can, good. Welcome back. So thank you. So when I was planning our time together, I had been thinking about inviting people to share in the chat as they were thinking about the element air, the gift and a gift and a grief associated with air, a gift and a grief. Anyway, I'll just put that out there. I'd love to hear what emerged for you from your times together. What bubbled up? What kind of was alive in your small group as you were sharing with each other? If you could put up your online hand, it would be great to hear what was emerging and what had energy in your triad. So, Kathy.
So I heard from the others in our group and in myself, the places where we are connected to the world around us, the trees or the vulture flying past or the opportunity to sit. And so I think that for the 3 of us, the opportunity to think about or to experience that sense of place in among others was present for all 3 of us. I just want to share that the last 2 lines of the poem that you read, I found profoundly disturbing. And I would have to go back. There were wonderful lines, spinning something from joy, breathing until you get big, that I'm going to would have to go back and say, what were you really getting at? Because I need people to be different. I need our culture to be different. Because the last lines were keep breathing until you stop needing anything to be different. I need myself to be different so that I can model how to live in a reciprocal relationship with the world and not a destructive one. I need Hamas and the state of Israel to come to an understanding. And so I have, I don't know, if you put it the title of it in the chat, I might go back and look at it, but I'm going to carry a sense of disturbance away.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate you sharing that response. Thank you. Other reactions and responses? Helene.
Yeah, in our group, there was a deep resonance of the whole air cycle, and that we were in some rather different settings where it's rainy and misty on the skin in one place, but glorious and golden and blue skies in other places. And it didn't seem to matter what type of weather pattern or environment you were in. Some of us stayed in rather than going out. Um, the meditation of the cycle of air was really strong.
Mhm. Thank you. Any other things that arose up in your group? Energy, what you noticed? Read.
Yeah, I really love the poem and also the meditative piece, which I did not manage to do this week. So thank you for repeating some of those beautiful words. Uh, I shared with my group, it just brought me back to this beautiful place again of kind of that feeling of mystical oneness with trees and the earth. I don't know if you are virtual reality fans out there, but Montreal is quite a center for that. And there was a show that came a couple years ago where you put on your goggles. That's how virtual reality works. And what I saw before me was sort of a very dark forest, very dark. You're just sort of dimly aware of some bushes and scraggly trees. But then as you move forward, there was what looked like the trunk of a huge redwood tree. And so move forward a little bit more. You've got the goggles on. You can sort of see the other people around you, just dim shadows, so you don't bump into anybody. But then you approach the tree, and the bark, it looks absolutely real. So you sort of go and try and touch the bark. Then you realize your hand can go through the bark and into the tree. And I realized that was the point of this experience, was to move your body within, let's call it a redwood tree. And then the way it had been designed, they had animated what were like the life blood, the veins of the tree in these beautiful colors all around you as the sap was going up and down. And then I realized that if I put my hand out or move my body, that the life forces of the tree would interact with me. Mm-hmm. So just imagine the beautiful colors. Like I ended up sort of dancing with the life forces of this living tree. I've never forgotten that experience of that unity, and the poetry and the meditation words sort of brought me back to that space. So thanks for letting me share.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
That was lovely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other energies that came up in your triad? Things you noticed, things that caught your attention, things that were burbling. Rachel.
The two main energies were ones of thankfulness and gratitude, but also ones of concern. So there was almost a balance between those. So gratitude for connections and noticing those in different places, but also concern for how we're interacting with things around us, but also like related to water and things, and like the amounts of places that don't have access to those things, or like the fragility of those things. So maybe a sense of permanence, as in life continuing at some point, but also the fragility and impermanence of life itself, or of individual life.
Mm-hmm. Roger.
I'll share something that I found myself thinking of during our session. I put it in the chat, but I think lots of people don't look at the chat in here. So I learned some years ago, it's one of the only pieces of chemistry I remember. I learned that there are two complex molecules that are identical in shape. They have the same branches, they have the same atoms at the end of each branch. But if the central atom is iron, then the molecule is hemoglobin. Change that central atom to magnesium, and the molecule becomes chlorophyll. So I thought it was a remarkable synchronicity of our connection between mammals, we who need oxygen to find energy, to create energy in our bodies, to use energy, and then plants who take the energy from the sun using chlorophyll.
Thank you. Thank you. One more from Eddie. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. We had a very personal sharing in the group. And I had one moment when I sensed a lot of energy. I had been working on the computer before coming onto this program. And I went outside to breathe for a minute just to get some fresh air. And a bird, a shogui, flew into the garden and into the tree. And it's a very rare visitor. He may only come once or twice a year. And that presence lifted me. And I was in a good shape then to come in to this meeting.
Well, our time is short together. I want to say thank you. I want to really come back to Kathy's comments about the end of the poem, and I appreciate her bringing into our midst anger.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
That
Could
would
you
be my
please
repeat? I appreciate her bringing into our midst anger, because anger is the other side of grief. And I think as we're engaging with the elements and we're thinking about them, we experience gratitude, which we've experienced today, and we experience grief about things that are not good. That's why we're gathering, because we know that the relationship we have with the biosphere is not the way it should be. And the other side of that grief is anger that things are the way they are. And so I think that all of these emotions are important. And I think it's a discernment process to know when it's time to be still and let go and take the rest that comes with that, and when it's time to be active and engaged in doing things. So it's not that one is right or one is wrong, it's what discernment of when is the right time. So I'm grateful that we can have all of this diversity as part of our midst, and feels like it's been a really rich time this morning. And I'll be sharing the comments from the chat. Ellen was calling it a poem. It absolutely is a poem that we wrote together. So I'll be sharing that with you, and I invite you to read it next week to yourself a number of times and let the goodness of it just simmer through your body. The chapter we'll be working on is chapter 6, and it's called Breathing with the Earth. So it's earth focused. So I'll send a photocopy of that out to you again. I really encourage you to buy the book. I don't want to keep photocopying because that's not appropriate use of someone else's material. So if you would like to use that book as a resource, I encourage you to buy it. And as we're closing, I just would we'll use our waterfall that we used last week because that was so beautiful. I invite you just to kind of type in, what are you full of right now as this time comes to a close? What are you full of as we end our time together? So we'll just take a moment or two to write those into the chat. And then we'll end with a big goodbye. What are you full of? Peace, gratitude, appreciation of shared community. I'm full of you. Peace, connection, appreciation, quiet, life, glorious sunshine, amazement of the universe, empathy, air and spaciousness, connection, noticing the warm air turning to cool, the love of indescribable interdependence and oneness, connection with trees, breath of the interconnectedness of life, amazement of the universe that we live in, wonder, oneness, glorious sunshine, life, quiet, appreciation, connection. Wow. Well, with all of this wonderful goodness, gratitude and blessing on each of you as you go through your day, and look forward to seeing you next week. And you have my contact information if you want to reach out at all. And blessings, and may the goodness of this flow out from us to all of the worlds that we're part of. The worlds that move, the worlds that have feet, the worlds that have wings, the worlds that breathe. May all of the goodness go out to all of those worlds. So blessings on you all. All right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for not being Sarah. And thank you for coming today. And let's turn off our mics and say the big goodbye. And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Utah.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just playing around with my computer. That was lovely.